Hello and welcome. I'm Lee Camp, joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield, and we have got a lot of important news to cover today. Thank you for being here. And we will be getting into Israel's next plans as they continue their sorry.
You're not allowed to say it.
Well, no, I still say it all the time. I just try and decrease the number of the prevalence because generally my prevalence is about 37 times throughout an episode. I'll say genocide, but yeah, so I'm trying to get it down to like the teens.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying. I just want to know where you're at, because if I then start saying it, then it'll
look. I
then
think
I'm taking your quota.
my view is whether it's I mean it clearly has hurt my views or not. If people are committing genocide, you got to talk about them committing genocide. So that's where I stand. But we're also going to get into Greenpeace may be destroyed by this latest loss in essentially a slap lawsuit where corporations spend millions upon millions of dollars to destroy organizations, and they may have succeeded at destroying Greenpeace. We will get into the continued persecution of various activists across the country, as well as some fun news about the crashing stock price of Tesla.
So you do have good news, is what you're
Yes, I do have good news. A lot going on, so click thumbs up, click share, throw in a comment, even if it's just gibberish. It'll help confuse the algorithm, and that's what I'm about in life, is confusing the algorithm. Okay, so to start off, let's just give a little update on what's been going on in Gaza. Israel pushes further into Gaza. Genocide death toll rises. 200 children killed in just a couple days.
Can I just say something really quick about how they count the dead?
Yes, can I just finish the sentence?
Yeah.
Over 700 killed in like 2 days or something. Go ahead.
So for those of you who don't know, the way that they count the dead is necessarily an undercount. How did I get here? Because the only
Something is cut off.
I didn't do it.
Looks like we're back. I'm blaming you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so basically the way that the dead are counted, I don't know if this got cut off, but they only count the dead who they can identify. So somebody who is still alive and can identify the dead person. And so people who are unidentified, who they can't find under the rubble, for instance.
Okay, that has never happened before.
Hello?
I think we're here.
Do you have like some kind of face, something on? My face looks weird.
I don't think so, but I'll check you keep talking and I'll check settings.
Okay. I blame the Zionists too, my friend. So yeah, don't touch up my appearance.
Well, I didn't know that was on.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear us? That was weird. I'm not allowed to talk about how they count the dead, apparently. So
yeah, they'll just cut off the entire
live
stream.
Stream. I'm gonna try one more time, and if it cuts off again, I'm just gonna hold up a sign that tells you how they do it, and you have to read my remarkably shitty handwriting. So, and people on the podcast, you're screwed. So basically, they only count people who they can identify. Sorry if you're hearing this for the third time. So people whose names they know. And so people who are unidentified, as in their entire family has been wiped out, or people who they pull from the rubble and there's nobody there who can identify them, they're not counted. So the numbers that you're seeing it's not like, oh, I bet that's an undercount. No, it absolutely is an undercount, because the way that the Gaza Health Ministry, the way that they themselves count it, is an undercount, because they only do people who they can identify. So I think it's important to note that when we're talking about the numbers of people who have been massacred by Israel.
Yeah, all important facts. And they also don't count. Generally, when you're hearing these numbers, they're not talking about those who died from disease or starvation, which are also weapons of war by Israel. So when we say 200,000 have died by Israel's hand in Gaza, that includes the disease and starvation and other things. But I also wanted to bring everyone there are some early signs that Israel is readying a ground invasion of Gaza. And as you'll recall, the last time they perpetrated a ground invasion, they went in and executed thousands. And so things are just looking worse and worse. The renewed is from the cradle. The renewed Israeli military operations in Gaza have killed well over 400. This is from a day ago. Israel will from now on act against Hamas with increasing military strength, said Netanyahu. Israeli official speaking on the condition of anonymity said Israel was striking Hamas's leaders. Yeah, all that bullshit. We're only striking the leaders, except apparently 50% of them are children under the age of 14. The Russian deputy representative raised the possibility of renewed ground invasion to the UN, saying we have information that the Israeli army is preparing for a ground operation in the Gaza Strip. The situation is worsening due to Israel's refusal to provide for the needs of the people under the occupation. Protecting civilians is not among the principles and methods of the Israeli army. Not at all. The threat of a ground invasion accompanied by a warning from Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, who said that the gates of hell will open in Gaza. We will not stop fighting. They're not fighting. They're just obliterating until all of our hostages are home. And let's remember, they killed their own people, and they continue to kill their own people. Yeah, so there is some signs that this is going to, a ground operation is next, which is just even worse.
If you follow Bizan on Instagram or wherever she posts things, she is an incredible journalist, and has written that she wrote this earlier today, about 1 hour ago, actually. People of Beit Lahia have received evacuation orders today, telling them to move to the west of Gaza City. And just so you know, like, when Israel gives these evacuation orders, they mean nothing, because there's nowhere safe to go. They continuously bomb safe places. For instance, you may have heard about the UN workers who were where they were sheltering was attacked the other day. And here's the thing: they're only allowed in with Israel's permission, and Israel tells them where to go.
Right.
So Israel knows exactly where they are because they told them to go there. So, and I'm not saying that you should ever believe if Israel's like, oops, we didn't know what we were bombing, but I'm saying in particular, when they murder international aid workers and things, the aid workers are only there because Israel allows it. So the idea that they wouldn't know where they are is ridiculous. And again, so the evacuation orders that they give and tell them to move here or there or whatever, it's really just to cause chaos, because there's no safe place to go.
Yeah. It's to cause chaos, and sometimes it's to get actually people more packed together in a certain part of Gaza so they can attack them more easily, or so they can claim that a certain area that they told people to clear out of is an open fire zone, which means we can just which means we can just shoot children walking around because they're in the area we told them not to go. It's all garbage, of course. It's all lies, propaganda, bullshit. And this is what our government continues to stand for. Under Biden, under Trump, hasn't made a lick of difference, as they say. But one thing that has slightly ramped up is Trump's aggressive deportation of activists who dare stand up against genocide. And let's get into some of those.
Yes, there are several several stories on that. One is a Brown professor. Not wow, that
sounded terrible.
Like Brown, the university.
The university, yeah.
God,
come on.
I did.
Trying to get her.
I had already said it when my brain went, "Oh, that's."
You have no idea how difficult it is to get her not to just lead with everyone's skin color. It's just terrible.
That being said, would you be surprised if that were the case? I mean, in the United States, just say. Okay, so the assistant professor of medicine at Brown University, Rasha Alawi, has been deported. Alawi has been deported and is now in Lebanon after she landed at Boston Logan International Airport, and the deportation took place despite the order from a U.S. district judge who said that she should not be deported, and still basically the government was like, ICE was like, I think we're just going to go ahead and do that. So folks might be, I'm assuming if you've watched this program, you're familiar with Mahmoud Khalil's case and the fact that a judge has said that he can remain in the United States. This goes to show what happened with this Brown assistant professor of medicine. They don't necessarily listen to those judges' orders. And then what are the ramifications if they don't? Like, oh, I guess ICE gets a slap on the wrist or something. It's like, it's really important that we share what the judges say and what they've said and what they've done and everything, but also recognize that this is not like slamming the gates down and saying, no, you can't deport people.
Right. And similarly, we discussed the Venezuelans who were shipped to El Salvador, to one of the most notorious prisons in the country. And Trump called them all Venezuelan gang members. But now, as we suspected, we found that at least a couple of them, one is a pro soccer player who's a Venezuelan goalkeeper. Another one is the soccer coach, were deported, and Trump claimed to an El Salvador prison where they probably won't get any fair trial. And it's just because Trump's declaring they're all gang members. Basically, anyone from Venezuela is a gang member. But that had a similar situation where the judge said this flight cannot, is illegal under U.S. law. You can't ship these people overseas, and the flights need to come back. They need to turn around. And they just, celebrated and said, ha, 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 they're already in international airspace. It's too late. So yet again, we see him and his administration just ignoring judges and the judicial system in general. And part of the reason that, sorry, one more quick thing.
No, go ahead.
Part of the reason you haven't seen this type of behavior from now, if you watch the show regularly, you know that the two parties are essentially one party on most issues. But part of the reason you haven't seen some of this behavior from previous presidents in terms of like a judge mandates they do something and they just ignore the judge, and various other aspects of presidential power grabs, is because they realize that this same thing could then be used. If Trump's able to prove that judges don't matter and you can just ignore the judiciary completely, that can then be used by any president. It's Trump now, but who will it be next? And so you've seen presidents, as horrific as they are, and they're all genocidal war criminals, so I'm not acting like they're good people, but you've seen a lot of them not just ignore judges' orders, not because they care about the U.S. system or anything, but I think more because they fear it could come back to bite them later if other presidents or other administrations just ignore all judges' orders, etc. But anyway.
And I just want to mention something really quick. This is a post from a lawyer, a Los Angeles-based attorneys at law. So I can't say that this is 100% accurate, but it was one of the top shows on my DuckDuckGo search engine. They say that the top 12 reasons for visa revocation, this is a post from 2018. So I do want to make it clear that while Trump is absolutely bananas, and we're obviously seeing a ramp up in the targeting of, in particular, intellectuals and academics, the reasons that you can have your visa revoked are pretty amazing. So obviously, like, arrest is one, violations of visa status or conduct in the US inconsistent with representations in the visa process. What does that word salad mean?
Also, failure to love those red, white, and blue popsicles, also called bomb pops.
Yeah, those are gross. Security.
Uh-oh, you're gonna get deported.
Security. So basically, like, if you're on a no-fly list, which what causes you to be on a no-fly list? See how this is, like, it's so flimsy.
One of the journalists I'm covering in the next Unredacted Night got on a no-fly or heightened security list because he covered the theft at the Pentagon.
Okay, this is really great. A poison pen letter. No matter how outlandish, the consul may give credence to a letter to the embassy from an ex-spouse, former business partner, ill-wisher, or jilted lover that accuses a visa holder of engaging in illicit activity or conduct inconsistent with the visa. So legit, you could just like if you had bad sex with somebody and you wanted to get their visa revoked because they couldn't get hard or something, you could send that to the continents, be like, well, they shouldn't have their visa because they're a bad person, and they'll listen to you. What? Okay.
He promised me at least 6 inches, and this did not live up to a visa-worthy evening. I'll just say that in front of the judge.
There you go. Like, a family member in the U.S. engaging in suspicious conduct. What suspicious conduct?
Oh my God. So basically, they can revoke it for anything.
But that's my point. It's like, this post is from 2018, y'all. Okay, and so again, I'm only contextualizing what Trump is doing. I'm not saying it's okay, or I'm not trying to normalize it, certainly, but these BS reasons for revoking a visa have been on the books for a while. And so it's quite clear that Trump isn't like coming up with new shit. He's using the tools that are already there.
Yep.
So for instance, if you were a president like worth a damn, then maybe you would have like ensured that these reasons for revoking a visa weren't legitimate anymore, so that by the time now comes around, they like Trump wouldn't have these machetes in his toolkit.
Yeah, and this is something we've talked about before. The neoliberal world left a red carpet to fascism. They were like, here are all the tools, and this was laid down going back decades. Like it was just like, here is all the tools to become a fucking dictator. Here it is. Have fun with them. And they acted like, oh, it's not a problem. It's not. We have judges that'll say things.
And with regards to the family member acting suspiciously, that's very apt in the ICE detention of a Georgetown researcher, Badar Khansuri, who is an Indian national.
So he was not a Brown researcher.
You know what? He's an Indian national here in the U.S. on a student visa. His wife is Mafeze Saleh, a U.S. citizen. So citizen, she is from Palestine. And she's a Georgetown student who in recent weeks came under online attacks by pro-Zionist websites. So they're not going after her. They're going after her husband because of things that she did or didn't do. I don't know, that she held a sign saying,
I think she's Palestinian.
Palestine. Yeah.
I think that's the
problem. That's it. She was born. So that's problematic. So they're going after her husband. So, I mean, this is also something that's very common in fascistic playbooks. And I've talked about this with regards to, for instance, what's happening in Kashmir, that a lot of Kashmiri journalists and activists are not speaking out, not for fear of their own lives, but because the Indian government has threatened their families. And I think that, a lot of people who do this work would say, do whatever you want to me, but don't harm my family, which is, of course, why it's part of the fascistic playbook to go after people's families. So He's being detained right now in Louisiana. I'm not sure if he's in the same ICE detention center as Mahmoud Khalil. It wouldn't surprise me.
And why are they sending everyone to Louisiana? Well, I covered this the other day, that they needed a favorable judge to send these people to because they did not want them in New York. So you can just pack them up, put some wrapping tape around them, and ship them down to Louisiana, where the judges are utterly insane. By the way, folks, click thumbs up, and we do not frown upon super chats. There's no frowning.
Another person is Lekha Khordia, who's a Palestinian student at Columbia University. She was abducted to an ICE detention center in Texas on March 14th. I'm assuming that's a similar situation as Louisiana in terms of why they send them there.
You're saying Texas might have some right-wing judges? Is that what you're implying? I am offended.
She basically had her student visa revoked. And of course, her situation, and I'm not saying that, for instance...
You did not send me this one.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not saying that the situation for the guy at Georgetown is great, but she would be deported to the West Bank, which is currently undergoing an increase in the ethnic cleansing that it was already undergoing. Yeah. So you're not deported, you're sentencing her to death for basically exercising her right to free speech. And here's the thing. Some people might say, well, she's not a citizen, so she doesn't get to have free speech. Well, here's the problem. If she doesn't have the right to the good things involved in the US Constitution or what have you, then she can't be subject to the bad things either. So for instance, if she can exercise free speech, then she should be covered by the laws that protect free speech. You can't have it both ways. This was the problem with the Assange case, right? Well, if he's exercising free press, then he shouldn't be targeted. And if he's not subject to the US Constitution, then you can't actually go after him as if he's a subject to US laws. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah. The Assange particularly was insane, because it was saying that the US law, no matter what we say it is, applies all over the world, no matter where you are, which is saying that the US has a world government.
But of course, you don't have access to the rights that are supposedly enshrined in the Constitution, only subject to the application of the law in detaining and arresting you, because that makes sense. So that's just an example of some of the people who have found themselves in the crosshairs. I wouldn't expect this to stop. But again, I wanted to contextualize how incredibly flimsy a foundation people with visas are already standing on and have been for a while.
But speaking of ICE, let's talk about how awesome and kind-hearted ICE is to their victims.
So this is not news, right? Again, context. Obama was the first person to put kids in cages at the border. This is nothing new. And ICE, lest we forget, has only been around since 2001. So it's not like this is...
Yeah, I know. People act like when you hear about people freaking out about someone said defund ICE, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Dude, they've been
exactly
around.
What you did in 2000.
They've been around for 14 years. You're going to be fine.
And CBP has not been around that. Sorry, the Border Patrol has not been around that long either. So you could even be like the shitty US empire without those two agencies. You could still do it.
I mean,
we were doing it before.
Hell, nation states, the way we define them now, they've only been around for 200 years. So
I know. So ICE is using courthouse cells for lengthy detentions. And so a detainee's report not having access to private toilets, showers, hygiene products, and life-saving HIV and diabetes medications. Now, this actually takes place here in our current hometown, Baltimore. Typically, it says agents in the Baltimore field office use the cells to confine people they have arrested before transferring them to longer-term detention cells. Now, that's not so much the situation. ICE policy, the states even that they shouldn't be held in these cells for longer than 12 hours. So you can imagine what these look like. I've seen a holding cell in LA, and they're tiny. I imagine it's relatively the same thing.
It's a box with
It's a box.
it's a box with a toilet, but I've heard from many that the toilet is often out of service, so you're just like pissing and shitting in a bucket or something.
And several lawyers said that their clients shared the small rooms in this building with 10 to 20 people. So you're basically being crammed into, I mean, it's another fascistic tactic to basically cram people into very tight confined spaces and see what happens. Because you obviously don't perceive them to be human. And basically, they're saying this is because the Trump policies have been like, it's basically caused a flood of ICE detaining. I don't like detain because detain suggests somebody did something wrong.
Held hostage.
Yeah, a kidnapping, because ICE is kidnapping more people. They don't have places to put them, which I also find astonishing considering that we are the largest prison state in the world and you don't have enough cells for the people that you're kidnapping now. That really says something about the massive amount of human bodies that are being shoved into cages in this land of the free. So they say that ICE is breaking their own rules, holding people in inhumane conditions. I find that sentence funny because that's what ICE does.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those examples where it's like their policy says this, and then they consistently break it, and nobody does anything because it's ICE. And so they're like, look at our policy. It says we should do we do this thing, but no one's going to stop you from doing something more horrific. The whole foundation of your organization is horrifying. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's all, and I do hope that these lawsuits and like the shining of a light on this addresses this issue. But again, let's not pretend that ICE is somehow going to change their ways to the point where they start treating people like humans. So,
and let's remember that all of this is racist policy. And I know that, the right wing or fresh Trump lovers will claim, oh, you just act like anything he does is racist, but Biden behaved the same. That's because Biden's policies were also racist. You need to understand that in many ways, in many of our policies, we live in a white supremacist state. It doesn't matter that there might have been a, black president, a black head of the Pentagon at one point recently. These things don't matter when you look at the actual policies and the systems in play here. So are these racist policies that Trump is enacting? Absolutely. Were Biden's? Absolutely. And yeah, people will go, oh, well, there's more white people in prison. Yeah, but if you look at the percentages of white people per capita and the percentages of not white people per capita, it is way more not white people per capita. So you have to look at the stats in the correct way to see just how racist it is. But yes, it is also a war it is a class war as well, which is what prisons are. Prisons are meant for locking up mainly people who are not in the top 20%. In the top 20%, you can afford the types of lawyers. I think I said this just on the Unredacted Tonight last night. If you're rich and you're in prison, then you really fucked up. Like, you picked the wrong lawyer, all right? Because you should not get your lawyer advertised on a urinal puck. The rich are not in prison. It is a war on the lower classes.
So I just want to say a few more points about this because they share information about a couple of cases. One, a grandmother just happened to be at standing where a undocumented family was detained, and so she was swept up. She has grandchildren who are U.S. citizens, and she has lived in the States for 20 years. She does not have a criminal record, as if any of this should matter, by the way. And she
I know, like you stole a candy bar 5 years ago, therefore you don't matter anymore.
Or like if her grandkids weren't U.S. citizens, like who cares? She's a grandmother.
Yeah.
Or how about this? She's just a fucking human being. She was not given access to any hygiene items. She had to sleep on the floor with no mattress. She was refused foil blankets, which, by the way, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. It's not really a blanket. It's a piece of foil. Basically, it's supposed to keep you warm when you're in a cold cell. So just imagine your grandmother, assuming that you like your grandmother and you wouldn't want her treated like this, you monster. Just imagine your grandmother being subjected to this just because she happened to be standing somewhere at the wrong place at the wrong time. Another person in his 50s has been in the United States since he was 6 years old. Again, not that this should matter. Was abducted by ICE and thrown in a cage and not given access to diabetic medicine. If anybody knows anything about diabetes, you know that is a death sentence. And so as of this writing, he was still alive. But basically what ICE is doing is that they're targeting anybody that looks brown, that looks like they might be an immigrant. And this flows with something that happened also a couple of days ago. I'm sorry I didn't send this to you, but
I also had a joke on the Unredacted night about them rounding up Native Americans as well.
Yeah, so that happened in January.
You don't look like you belong here.
Yeah. How ironic. I actually did a segment about this on the Project Censored show with Harsha Walia, who wrote the book Border and Rule about
Yes, Scott, we are. Shadow Band.
Yes. About the connection between basically the genocide against the indigenous peoples of what is now the United States and the jingoist border empire that the US has constructed. But anyway, so basically in the past 48 I don't even know how many days, ICE has arrested 48 residents in New Mexico and won't say where they are. That's another thing. This grandmother that I just mentioned totally disappeared. Her family had no idea where she'd gone. They couldn't locate her. She wasn't allowed to make phone calls. So again, you can't subject people to the negative parts of your law without giving them the rights that they are supposed to have under that law. I mean, you obviously can, but then you sure as shit can't masquerade yourself as any kind of republic or democracy. ICE arrested 48 residents in New Mexico. It's unclear where they are, whether they've been given access to a lawyer or even which agency is holding them, because again, these agencies they collaborate quite a bit. So that's why also it's dangerous for undocumented folks to call the police. Even some people won't call the fire department because they're afraid, or EMTs. During COVID in DC, for instance, one of the things that our mutual aid group heard a lot was, well, I was going to call because he had trouble breathing, but I was afraid if I called 911 and the EMTs came, ICE would come too.
Yeah. Or the EMTs would call the cops and say, hey, these don't look like they're documented people or something like that. And of course, also people were afraid to call for any kind of medical care because they didn't know if they'd get a bill for $5,000 the next day that they couldn't pay. So.
And again, these people, the ones I'm mentioning in New Mexico and the ones that were picked up in Maryland, these people are just picked up because they look to ICE like they should be picked up, as in they're not white. And they look like or according to ICE, they look like they're from Central or South America. So there's no evidence against. It's not like they're being caught, lighting something on fire, right? They're not being caught beating children, like something horrific. They're just standing there, or they're at their jobs, or they're doing this is like the definition of a fascistic regime that just sweeps people up because they don't like the look of them. Like in Nazi Germany, they just sweep people up because they looked Jewish, or they swept people up because this person said that they were gay or a communist.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. I want to move on to another topic in a second. Is that okay?
Yes. Did I?
No, I just wasn't sure if you had more.
I mean, I always got more in the tank, but we can move on.
This is how you do it without a producer. You go, you have any more? No? Okay. I want to move on to the next topic. Before I do that, real quick, the new episode of, I like for people to hear a little banging. The new episode of Unredacted Tonight just came out last night. I beg you guys to go watch it after the live stream. Unredacted Tonight, episode 5 just came out. I cover how we could be on the brink of superabundance if we actually dealt with it right. I have a special guest, Peter Joseph, creator of the Zeitgeist films. There's a segment on Ukraine, perhaps maybe being a proxy war. I'm not clear on that yet. I cover the history of the U.S. government poisoning our own citizens so much in this latest episode of Unredacted Tonight. Go to linktree.com/LeeCamp to get it. It's the top link on that page. Thank you, Incredible Holge, for the donation. Really appreciate you supporting the show. It means the world. We do not frown upon super chats here at this show. Thank you so much for the show.
And apparently we also accept euro. So
we accept euro. We accept all kinds of
denominations.
No, I was going to say things.
Currencies?
Denominations.
I lost what it was called. Currencies, I think is what it's called.
Perhaps currency.
We do accept all denominations too.
All denominations of currency. Oh, maybe it is. Can you say that? Maybe you can.
It's denomination. Is that religious?
It's also religious, but okay. I know I'm sounding dumb right now, and it's just happening. I'm on the dumb slide, and I'm going to keep going down it.
Your butt's scooting down the dumb slide.
Yes, I think you can say denomination of currency.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, isn't that ironic?
So maybe I shouldn't have found it funny.
Separation of church and currency.
It does say it does. It says in God we trust on the dollars. So.
Well, I know, and historically the church is anyway.
But yeah, so it's at the Unredacted Night episode is free to watch at my YouTube, and it is right there. You can go to linktree.com/LeeCamp. That'll take you to the playlist of all 5 of the first Unredacted Nights. And I hope you will check them out. They're a good time, man. Comedy news. All right. I want to get to something I find fascinating, which I feel like almost no one is talking about as an aspect of the fact that Tesla stock is relatively crashing. It is still a massive stock, but it has basically been cut in half over the past month, but it doubled after Trump got elected. So it doubled after Trump got elected. It has now lost all of those gains, which is a crazy amount for a stock to go up and down. I mean, a big stock to go up and down like that. But if it keeps going down, it will be way below what it was. Elon Musk has lost somewhere between 120 and $200 billion in his so-called wealth, if you count stocks as wealth. Shares as wealth.
Why?
Why has it gone down so much?
Mm-hmm.
Because people are realizing he's a fascist piece of shit. And a lot of liberals. I mean, they're like the fan base of Teslas for a long time was liberals. Like maybe not the people screaming on Reddit, but the number one purchasers of those cars, because they're expensive cars. Number one purchasers was kind of these middle class liberals, and a lot of them don't want to be connected to it anymore. Now, all of that part that I just said, thank you, Denise, for supporting the show. All of that I just said, you could get from a CNN news coverage. So here's where I get a little deeper. Thank you, Mark Dansky, for supporting the show. That's not me getting deeper, but thank you, Mark, for supporting the show. Here's the deeper aspect of it that it seems like very few are covering, if any, is that the government, our government, has acted for years, maybe since the inception, but for years, has acted as a shield between the ruling oligarchs, the corporatocracy, the top corporate elite, and the people. And that corporate elite would not put themselves in the Oval Office because they wanted a scapegoat, but they just wanted that shield. Yes, P. Walker, loving it for supporting the show.
Mm-hmm. Good point he makes too.
Oh, well, I should go ahead and read it then. P. Walker says, Tesla lost 45% of their market share in China in 2024 alone. They are being outpaced in both price and technology by BYD. Yes, actually, I meant to cover this. Thank you, P. Walker, for reminding me of this. BYD.
So you do have a producer.
The car brand. Yeah, Paul, I'm guessing Paul Walker. You are now the, Polly. Polly
Perry?
Walker. Did you say Mary?
Perry.
Oh, I was like, Mary is
Peter?
not. You are now the producer of the show. BYD, the car company, which apparently, please stop, apparently heads and tails above above Tesla is just lapping them in technology and everything else, has come out with a 5-minute charger. For those of you who don't know, and I do lease an electric car. For those of you who don't know, if you're not on the super fast chargers, it takes hours and hours. If you're on one of the super fast chargers, which is very few in the United States because our infrastructure is garbage, then it takes maybe 20 minutes to a half hour to charge like 60 or 80% of your car. BYD has come out with one that's 5 minutes. Like that is a game changer.
Not to mention that BYD cars are selling for like 30 grand or something, whereas like the cheapest EV that you can get here of any quality is like 50. So
yeah. Ariana 1967 supporting the show over on Rumble. Love you, Ariana. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Loving the super chats. You guys rock. Seriously, thanks for the solidarity. But so back to my point. The traditionally there has been this shield between these ruling elite. Like, look at Obama in office, okay? Obama, when he entered office, barely a millionaire. I guess he became a millionaire with his book or whatever. Poor guy, barely a millionaire. Made a few million, but whatever, in office. And he's rewarded with tons of money the moment he steps out of office. Steps out the door, they give him a bag of money from Wall Street for, 1 hour speech. So he's still enriching himself with the presidency in that way. But he was not one of these corporate oligarchs. He did not own a massive company. He was not Jeff Bezos. He was not Steve Jobs. He was not one of the Walmart family. He was not the big pharma oligarchs, the big oil oligarchs. There was that line, and he and his administration and Congress are this shield between the people rising up and being furious at the actual decision makers, the ones behind the curtain, the great Oz. The people are not supposed to point at the great Oz for the problems in society. Instead, they point at the people they can, quote unquote, vote for, this largely sham democracy we have.
Who are on two different sides.
So who are completely two different sides. So, and this has gone on for decades. When the people get angry, point them at the politician. Don't worry, we'll get a new one in there in a couple of years. Even when people were furious at George W. Bush, liberals despised him, as did I. And yet it was like, well, in 4 years, we're going to get a new one in there. And this trick has worked, has done really great at getting people not to understand who actually owns the society. And yet Donald Trump, again, a lot of his stuff that he reveals about the society is accidental, has accidentally revealed the true decision makers by putting, I think it's 13 billionaires into his cabinet. He himself is a billionaire, whether he's exaggerating his wealth or not. And of course, the richest man in the world, who is heavily changing our society, Elon Musk, or at least at little aspects of it. And now the people are directly aiming their anger at one of the oligarchs, at one of the corporate titans, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. And so it is his stock of Tesla is crashing, and it is costing him hundreds of billions. Now he is still the richest man in the world. He's not gonna have trouble affording that steak dinner tonight, I don't think. But I just find it really fascinating that they've taken that shield, that false shield of the wrath of the people away, and now they're going, what? What do you mean these people are mad at Tesla? So Trump did his whole White House ad for Tesla. They had Elon Musk on the Hannity show to promote Tesla. Like, they are running around trying to make sure his stock does not continue to crash.
Yeah. I mean, I used to think in my head douche canoe every time I saw a Cybertruck, but now it's like,
oh yeah, they just recalled almost all the Cybertrucks because the trimming comes off and it's dangerous.
If you see one of those in traffic, steer clear. Also flip them off as you're driving, but steer clear because that shit just fall apart in the middle of the road. Catch fire and shoot
they will catch
balls
fire.
Of metal at your windshield. Steer clear.
Also, apparently the closing trunk, if you at least initially, if you put a metal can in there, it would cut it in half. So you can imagine what it would do to a finger. They might have fixed that. I'm not sure.
Well, that's why Elon Musk has so many kids, because he's already lost a couple in
the closing doors
device.
The closing doors of the Cybertruck. Another one. Okay, let's move on. You've got an interesting article here on the
Eleanor with the good news
good
again.
news, how the violence in Syria impacts your genes. They sow genes. They sow genes in Syria, and all the genes that have been shipped here are not as good as they used to be. Should I really keep going?
Please.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, so this is a study that's specific to Syria, but of course, they're not a different type of human there. So this is, of course, accurate for, I don't know, maybe somewhere where there's a genocide going on right now. It's also, of course, applicable to, obviously on a lesser scale, but just like the stresses of trying to stay alive in the crumbling empire of the United States. Basically, violence may have altered survivor genomes for generations. The researchers used the 1982 Hama massacre in Syria as a first point of reference, and they've found possible proof of genetic changes linked to stress. Now, this is nothing new in terms of what researchers have found, that stress, it literally like tears apart your like nerve endings, and it tears apart, it tears at the structure of your body. So stress is actually one of the most dangerous things for your health.
But it's added to my belly. Tell you that much. I'm the only one who stress eats? Come on.
I just eat. So I find it funny when people are like, oh, I'm so depressed I can't eat. And I'm like, that's weird, because when I'm sad, I just eat like I usually do. Anyway,
that'd be great if you were one of those people, because you could just like go and watch, I don't know, Schindler's List or something, and then it's like a diet.
Wow, that's dark. Don't follow Lee's diet plans, everyone, because you'll commit suicide in about 2 weeks. Okay, so basically this alters DNA that then obviously gets passed down. I'm not going to do the whole science class spiel because I think y'all get it, but this was a study published in the Scientific Reports journal, and Rana Jajani from Jordan's Hashemite University, Connie Mulligan from the University of Florida, and Catherine Panterbrick from Yale collaborated with other colleagues and led the research. I also like that line because it's like, oh my gosh, we can collaborate on research while our governments are just being absolute penis wrinkles.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we could do. Maybe it's also that the people of the nation states that are oppressing us have more in common with each other than we do our own governments. Just throwing that in there. They concluded that the grandchildren of women who survived the 1982 massacre still bear marks of their grandmother's stress in their genomes.
Someone in the chat rightfully points out Gabor Mate talks about this stuff.
Yeah. So again, this isn't like anything groundbreaking. It's just that they've taken a very specific event. So as opposed to saying like, oh, I led a stressful life, they're like this one horrific event. Obviously, like I'm assuming these people didn't have perfect lives on either side of this horrific event, but focusing specifically on people who all shared this event together. The grandchildren of people who were there as a part of it all showed signs. So that's an incredible that's an incredible addition to the research that Gabor Mate has talked about and done and etc.
And Denise, thank you for reminding us. She says this was proved with the grandchildren of slaves as well.
Right. So basically, what they're saying is that this is something that we should take into consideration when we do things like genocide. Connie Mulligan
because otherwise it's fine.
No, I know, but basically, like
my point is just the people committing genocide, they don't care about those people, so they wouldn't care about the people after them either. But yeah.
Well, I know, but one of the researchers said that this should help people be more empathetic, pay more attention to the problem of violence, not just genocide, but violence in general, and how that gets passed down, and what that means also then for how the grandchildren and the descendants of the people who lived that stress, how they might deal with that stress, right? Because you're not born with coping mechanisms, but you're born with this generational stress, this generational trauma. And of course, that one of these professors writes that this can help also explain the seemingly unbreakable cycles of abuse and trauma that we see around the world. And this, I think, is also an important time to mention that this is it's not just the internal issues, it's the external. Because if these grandchildren of the people who lived through this massacre were born into a perfect Syria that wasn't going through what it's going through, thanks to the United States and its allies, things would look differently. Like if the descendants of slaves, if the descendants of people who have gone through these harsh and horrific traumas had access to a society that uplifted their health, the health of the people, mental and physical, because stress shows up physically, right? A lot of they've done studies that show that people with autoimmune disorders, that can be linked to generational stress and trauma. So it's like, I think it's important to note that this is a really great and important study that was done. And also we have to look at the external factors that perpetuate this kind of trauma, so that when these grandchildren themselves potentially have grandchildren, they won't just be passing along their grandmother's trauma, they're passing along their own, because society is not changing and it's continuing to dump trauma and stress and terrorism and horror on our shoulders and our backs. And we are then passing that along through our DNA to the next generation.
And my new favorite quote, which is not new, but I just seem to be repeating it recently. The quote about it is no sign of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. And we are all taking in a lot of this sick society constantly, every day, whether it be the very light comparatively to being in the middle of it, but very light PTSD of watching the images of what's going on in Gaza, the genocide perpetrated by Israel in Gaza, to just the way our society reacts to everything, the way our society is so callous, the way, right now we're seeing the government cut Social Security benefits in a variety of ways and go after food like school lunches for poor kids. And we're supposed to be adjusted to that society to think that's okay and that's fine and we shouldn't care about these people. And that gets passed down. That creates deep markings inside of us.
One, that was Jiddu Krishnamurti who said that, Indian philosopher.
I made it up.
Okay, good.
I came up with it. Yep.
White guy claiming he did. Okay. And also, I want to this is not to take the place of the importance of having a society that actually takes care of people. But I recently did an interview with Manar Adley, who's the editor-in-chief at Mint Press News, the founder. She's also a Palestinian American woman. And she talked about one of the things that she's doing. She has 2 sons. And she said one of the things that she's doing is she's working on her own trauma and healing that so that she can work with her sons. She can't do anything about the trauma that she's passed down, obviously. I can't do that with my child. But we can, as parents, as caregivers, as community, we can do more to heal ourselves so that we can also share that healing with our children who have had that trauma passed down to them. So, of course, especially as a Palestinian American woman, she can't do anything about the fact that her bloodline is riddled with this trauma. But she can do something about how that is passed on to her kids in terms of how she interacts with them and how she talks about this trauma and how she talks about and manifests that healing. So that's, again, not to make up for the fact that we need a better society in general, but also that there are these glimmers in a world full of triggers, and there are people doing beautiful work of healing themselves and their communities. And I see that as a radical refusal to partake in the system that is destroying us.
Glimmers in a World Full of Triggers was your second album?
No, but that is my quote.
That is great.
It is my quote.
That's great. That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get another story in here. Unfortunately, not the most upbeat. Now,
but it's not my story. So he brought a downer story too. It's not just me.
I love that you act like I bring all positive stories. So There are ways to be critical of Greenpeace. I've been critical of Greenpeace in various ways, and one of the bigger ones is they don't seem to do a lot about, or maybe anything about factory farming or farming in general, which is one of the biggest destructive forces on this world, if not the biggest. So there are criticisms to be had. That said, a lot of what they do is largely positive. You can debate about whether certain tactics are the best and that kind of thing, but there's a fair percentage of what they do that's positive. And that is why the positive things they do is why they were targeted for essentially a SLAPP lawsuit, a lawsuit designed to destroy an organization. And they so far, I'm sure they'll appeal, but they have so far lost.
That stands for a strategic lawsuit against public participation.
She didn't know. She looked it up.
Because I didn't remember.
I didn't remember either. I didn't want everyone thinking you just know that.
I don't want people thinking my co-host is smart, okay?
No, I had forgotten as well. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. Yeah, it is to crush the public participation of Greenpeace, which is a large organization, but they are not as large as Energy Transfer, a massive oil company.
I don't think they have $660 million to fork over either.
No, so that's why, this was designed to kill them. This is designed to kill them the way Gawker was killed by Hulk Hogan and Peter Thiel. Not that I liked Gawker, but same idea. For those who don't know, Gawker was a massive site and everything. They printed garbage, but it was a massive site. They put out Hulk Hogan's sex tape, and it was not Hulk. Yeah, it's disgusting.
I didn't need to hear that.
Let me finish. Okay. It was not Hulk Hogan who funded the lawsuit. It was someone far more wealthy than Hulk Hogan, Peter Thiel, who has now funded our government, meaning taken over our government. Peter Thiel funded Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker designed to kill Gawker. Peter Thiel hated Gawker because they, wrote bad articles about him, and they succeeded. So the judge, awarded Hogan like $1 billion or whatever it was, and Gawker had nowhere near that amount of money, and it closed. And so that's what these lawsuits are designed to do. Anyway, the jury in the trial has awarded Energy Transfer $660 million, a jury in North Dakota, because Greenpeace helped the protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline. You, of course, remember those protests, Standing Rock, etc. Yeah, in 2016. Let's see. On Wednesday, the jury awarded the pipeline company hundreds of millions of dollars. Greenpeace says the total judgment, $660 million, could significantly damage the organization. I mean, very well could shut it down, and it represents an attack on free speech within the country. I think Energy Transfer, and this is probably true of many big oil companies, is trying to send a message to other organizations that if you try and hold power to account, we will silence you. We will try to bankrupt you. And that's absolutely what this is.
Energy Transfer claims that Greenpeace led a, quote, misinformation campaign that encouraged people to protest. My question is...
How much is an information campaign?
Well, but also encouraged people to protest is not inciting people to break the law, which that's illegal. But encouraging people to protest is like what everybody does, like Jewish Voice for Peace, Code Pink, like from the smallest organization to like the Greenpeace. They all do that because it's supposedly something you're allowed to do. So it's like they're framing it like it was incitement to riot or to break the law, when in reality, how many of us have like flyered to say like, hey, come to this protest, or come to, like, should we also owe six? I mean, it's just such a bizarre way of framing it. I don't see how that could stand in court. I mean, Greenpeace is appealing the decision, but I'm just over here like encouraging people to protest is now illegal. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not just designed to shut down Greenpeace. It's designed to shut down protest. I mean, it's designed to make people think that they could be bankrupted simply for showing up at an oil pipeline protest. So it achieves both. And let's remember the tactics that were used against these protesters. We're talking violent police arrest. We're talking shooting them with rubber bullets. I can't remember if one journalist lost her eye or vision in her eye from these rubber bullets. They used attack dogs that were biting the protesters. That actually, by coincidence, was the day that Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Was standing there as they unleashed these dogs on the protesters. And none of that is Energy Transfer in trouble for. All of that is fine. What is the problem is people got in the way of big oil. That's what the problem is.
Quote George Carlin, the U.S. is just an oil company with an army.
Yes, we are, and now we're proving it. And yeah, someone mentioned Stephen Donziger's case. Donziger also has been a big proponent of trying to get the word out about this case because he rightfully saw that it was designed to shut down dissent and shut down protest against big oil, which of course is taking us all to our fiery doom. So
ended on a high note.
I think we should protest big oil. Uh-oh, am I going to get a slap lawsuit now?
Oh, hold on. I wanted to share this right before we go. It's a really good Instagram. I know Lee's going to hate that I say this.
Well, hold on. Let me just throw it out here. I'm going to do an extra segment for those of you members over at Locals. So when we finish up, do not head on out.
But I'm going to scoot. Okay. There's an account on Instagram called Vent Diagrams, which I love a pun. But they have, I do. So they have these great Venn diagrams that talk about our current times. And one of them that I really loved is it's a scary time to get loud. And this is the most important time to get loud. And I really, really like that because it's like the fear that folks are feeling right now is totally legitimate and it's totally warranted. And also we have to not be paralyzed by that fear. We have to move through that fear. We can move with it. We can, build community through the fear, but it's like we have to keep moving through that fear because protesting when everything's just great is would be weird, but B is not dangerous, right? And so the stakes are a lot higher now, but it really means that we have to push back harder because it's not hyperbolic to say that everything that we care about, everything that is beautiful, that's left, that's beautiful, is at stake. And it's not just because of Trump, but it is at stake. So.
Well said. Well said. No, do not scoot. Sit still, please. We're going to wrap up for 1 minute, literally 1 minute, and I will be back for everyone at Locals. Everyone who's a member at Locals, we will continue the show. I've got more topics for you, so hang in there. If you want to join for that extra segment, then I hope you will join up at leecamp.net. Just scroll down to become a supporter. It's at the lowest level. It's a whopping $6 a month, and I'm going to do an extra segment over there. Okay, so we're going to say goodbye for this segment, but then I'll do the extra segment.
For people listening
for the podcast,
for folks Common Censored, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, all of you. No, stay there, please. Please. For all of you who say goodbye, thank you so much. Check out Unredacted tonight, linktree.com/LeeCamp. It's right there, linktree.com/LeeCamp. And keep fighting. Okay, now I'll see everyone at Locals in just a minute. Okay, I'm actually still on with everybody who I haven't yet removed all the people who are not at Locals, so please hold, and I will say goodbye to everybody who's not at Locals.